Hi, I'm Whitney Ross, and with me today is John Ross. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this Sunday and just all the special things associated with it. It is Mother's Day,
Yes, it
and
is.
so happy Mother's Day to all of you that are out there that may be joining us. So lots of traditions around Mother's Day, that we have in community and in the church, and it's always a special time to be together and really think about those people that have had just a great influence on our lives. Tell me about kind of where you started for this morning, kind of around your thoughts and how that shaped where you led us this morning.
Good. It's good to do this. Thanks, Whitney. I start always with the congregation, but like you, we're all doing the common things, cards and balloons and flowers and some kind of celebration day if you can. At the same time, part of the narrative is to think a little more deeply, where are people on a Mother's Day? And that's something, as you know, in this series we've been trying to highlight, is thinking about where is everyone that's listening, what is their spiritual journey like? We know where we are, so let's ask them. And so it is in kind again today to start at that point. And I appreciate we're doing it together, and we're learning a lot and having a lot of insight. One of the things that strikes me is Mother's Day is particularly wonderful for a lot of people, but also hard for some people. And those people, interestingly, usually kind of speak to me, and I've been here a while, so year in and year out, often I'll get a little note or a text or something about that fact, that the journey for Mother's Day for them is a bit awkward at best. So I'm always sensitive that we're not all in the same place. It is wonderfully romantic and joyful, but sometimes you have to dive a little deeper to get kind of to the essence of what you need personally. So that's where I started, to think about where are some of those people in all the range, because it is a pretty big range, of people who are still young and have their moms with them, still in a very active relationship that's growing and developing and will to the end of time. And then those people who are trying to recreate after a mom's death. The people who did not really have a relationship with a biological mother, the people who were raised either through a foster care system or were adopted. In our congregation, we have a big range of those people. And so knowing their stories is really helpful. So that's where I start. I try to start where they are.
Yeah, and I think we all have people in our lives that have played that mother role outside of our biological mother. I mean, I think it's easy to kind of bring some of those to mind. When we think about that too, with the idea that, motherhood is not just defined by family.
Right, exactly. And I appreciate your catch, because when we did our preemptory video for the day and I asked people to bring a picture, you caught what I didn't say, is because we really do try to say that as a staff, don't we? That we understand that people are in a different place about this. And that I'd like to join the narrative somewhere near where their narrative intersects. Also, it'd be shallow not to acknowledge that motherhood is a role in a way as well. I mean, we are not defined simply by our role. We're not simply defined by function. We don't think of that in the church. And that is actually a theological point that may be small, but it's important. It's rooted in our baptismal covenant that we treat everyone with the dignity and respect that he or she deserves, but that they're unique. Each person's unique. Well, lots of us intersect then all of these narratives about how our social lives are lived in a different way. And boy, is our culture just abounding with that energy. And sometimes it's creative and sometimes not. But here at St. John's, you and I and all the staff, we're trying to really think through, then how do we present some thoughts and some ideas that are way better in being inclusive? To let people join the narrative with us so they speak up. But it's a tender thing, isn't it?
Sure.
It's a hard thing. But to acknowledge people who have been mother figures for you, because there is something, the ancient wisdom of masculine and feminine, and not necessarily identified with gender. That's a shocking thing to people, but the ancient Greeks understood that masculine and feminine qualities exist in both males and females. We have a young man in the parish now who is raising 6 children, now has a 7th baby.
Wow.
He is mother and father. In fact, that child was sick this week. He's been on a prayer list. He's a sweet little boy. And Simon has not been married, and he's a parent. And he's having to learn both of those ways to navigate and what the kids need, because that's what a parent does.
Right.
Not what I need, but what the child needs. So it's really alive for us and alive in the congregation.
And this week we had people think about a photo of their mother, whether they brought that with them or maybe had it beside them when they were watching. And tell me a little bit about kind of just that exercise and where you had in mind for that to go for people.
And to be honest, I have to give Whitney the credit for it, because at staff we said, well, what would we do this week? And Whitney said, and this is 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said, why don't we get people to bring a picture? And I said, instantly, I said it was a great deal, so thank you for it. And the reason is because pictures are highly symbolic, and they are tactile. They locate us in a time and space that's helpful. So when people could get a picture, and my sermon and my conversations have been kind of, even from this point on, if you've not done it or done it a little bit, don't put it down yet. Spend some time with this picture. Who is the person in that picture? And some people have pictures of their biological mothers that they never knew. So that's part of the journey too. I do think there's a powerful amount of healing that takes place when we can do the symbolic work. And I don't want to be erudite about this because it's powerfully important to the life of the church. We are mostly carrying our work along by symbols, not just signs, but symbols. Things that are way big that hold a lot of meaning and a lot of different meanings at one time. I think people probably understand that a bit when they look around, but it also happens with these icons of things that are ubiquitous to all humanity, like mothers. Well, see, that's kind of a big thing to think, well, what is all in there? So then to locate it specifically, I ask people to be appreciative then, who is that person? And I don't know where that work will take them. It's taken me, I've done it all week long. I've had this picture of my mom and my dad before World War II, where she's all dressed up, and they got married, and they knew each other 3 weeks, got married, and stayed married 50 years. Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
But then it got me thinking about what their lives were like as they approached World War II, what their early days were like, their service to the government. They both served in running a post exchange. So it was fruitful for me, and I thought, gosh, I hope this does this for other people. So what about the picture you have? Because this is the picture I found, and it's my favorite. It hangs in one of my hallways, and Lois and I have some pictures going down the stairwell, and I think she does this, but I never fail, almost every day, to look at who came before us as we go out for our day. So it's our parents' and grandparents' pictures, down to our cars. Well, this is a picture of my mom and dad. You can't see it, but I'll describe it to you. This is pre-World War II. They were very young. Pretty good-looking couple, I think. But I think about them, and the more I looked, I realized I was really thinking about my mom and my dad. One thing I'd never noticed about this picture, my father does not look happy. I kind of, you know what? I don't know if he liked taking pictures. I'm serious. I went, holy smokes, I never thought about that. Because he has that same look in lots of our pictures. He doesn't look happy taking pictures. My mom, though, has this little smile. And I think she knows he doesn't like taking pictures. I kind of like that, too. But there they are, pre-World War II. They knew each other 3 weeks and got married and stayed married for 50 years. You know why? Because Daddy thought he was going off to Europe. That didn't happen. But Mom and Dad ran the post exchange at Fort Leonard Wood, the largest Army base in the United States at the time. It was the transit place for all Army troops going to Europe and then going to Asia. And they served there for 5 years. They served the government doing that job. I've always been proud of that for them and for us. But I look at her now and I see her, and she's dressed up in the style of her time, form-fitting clothes, high heels, a lot of red lipstick, her hair kind of poofed up. It's just fabulous. But the more I looked at it, it got me to slow down. And I realized, who is she? Who is this young woman? Think about your picture. Who is that person? She's dressed up and all of that, but who is she beneath all of that? The person I call Mom, what were her interests? What were her dreams and aspirations and hopes? What were the things that dashed those aspirations and hopes? What were the goals that she had set for her life? What did she really want to be? Yeah, she wanted to be a mom, But I wonder what else. What more did she have? What were her fears? What were her favorite things to do? And man, I'll tell you, people came to church today, they've called me, they've texted me, and they're going back and finding pictures. Well, what it's uncovered then is this whole thing of their own identity mixed up into the identities in these pictures. It is really a neat exercise. So you kicked it up, and I thank you for it. But it's a great way to get people to think, you know, it's not just a picture. Nothing is just anything. Spend some time with it, it gets deeper.
Well, and you mentioned too, just in your own examination, it bringing forward who your mother was outside of the role of a mother, who
Right.
she was as a person, and what her hopes were, what her dreams were, what her fears were.
Yeah.
I think that's really a powerful step to take beyond just the connection maybe that we have and know to that greater idea of who they are and who they were.
Yeah, and I think it does, and I hope it does for all of us. All relationships are a bit tested at times. If they're real relationships, they have the whole extent of every emotion we can name. If they don't, then they're only partial. That's not a put down, but an awareness I have. When I'm having only one avenue with a relationship, it may not be as deep as I think. Motherhood, and I quoted the great Carl Jung, the great psychiatrist, thought that motherhood is buried in us at some deep, deep level. He called it mother love. Mother love is the most moving and unforgettable memory of our lives. It is the mysterious root of all growth and change. It is the love that means homecoming, shelter, and from which everything begins and everything ends. He didn't call it motherhood. And he said it is what navigates everything from the beginning of our life to the end. And it also helps us have homecoming, security, a place, and identity. That is a powerful thought. My experience of being a priest and watching family dynamics is absolutely true. It is not absent of fatherhood. We can talk about fatherhood on a different day. But it sure says something about that biological attachment. Then the relationship that's built after that. Because the relationship starts at 9 or 10 months.
Right.
The mother may feel it differently, but the child experiences it then as a functioning human in a different way. So then it goes on for life, and then I'm an older person, my mom has died, but see, I still have a relationship with her now. And so it brings healing. I understand things about myself by understanding her. I hope people can do some of that work. And again, when I say work, I think it's just imagination. I think it's trying to be creative and kind of let the voices of our history speak to us. And I think that's a spiritual exercise. And everybody does it. I was just encouraging, don't push it away, embrace it.
I think you mentioned Jerry had his photo on his desk this week at work. You know, a simple action as much as that, it just puts it in your mind. It just brings those feelings to the forefront. You know, it's something just as simple as putting something in view.
That's
a lot
right.
of times can do that for us.
And sometimes don't you think, and you have a family, I do, we have parents. Everybody has parents of one kind or another. They have a mom, but they also have parents. Somebody's helped raise them. And I always say, embrace who helped raise you, because I've walked this journey with people who've been adopted. I have, one of my godchildren is an adopted child. And so to learn that sometimes narrowing the images of mother or parent doesn't really serve us well. It's really much bigger.
Yeah.
I do follow the prescription, and it is a great societal implication and view that it takes a village to raise children. Not one person raises a child. Just doesn't happen. But that one person can also have a powerful impact, sometimes negatively, but I think most of the time very positively. So what happens is, like, my connection, so my story was seeing how solemn my father looked in this picture. And my mom has this quirky little smile. I think she's jabbing him about he doesn't like to take pictures. Do you know it explains some other things about his behavior to me? And I'm over 60 years old. Isn't that amazing? So it came to me, I thought, wait a minute, I have a different view now. Some of that's healing, and some of it just kind of settles. It helps us settle into the person we really are. Because we are all somebody.
Yeah.
We are all somebody, including our mamas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much for
Yeah,
the time
thank you.
today, and appreciate that. And
Great.
all the mothers watching, thank you for the time and sacrifice and the
Yeah.
gifts that you give.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody have a wonderful Mother's Day. And if you're watching it after Mother's Day, I hope you keep doing some of this work. It's good for us to talk about these things. Thank you.
Thank you, John.